Welcome back to The Collective. I'm Sepehr. This is Abdul.
And today we're going to be talking to you about the 3 things to do to show up the next day.
So that you don't give up on your goals.
That's right.
Let's get into it. So have you ever had a moment where you wake up, you're like, I'm feeling motivated. I'm going to do something today that I've never done before. And then 2 hours later, you are definitely not feeling that way.
I think that's the story of everyone's life.
Right?
I think everyone who's watching us right now probably has.
So a lot of people think that's just called discipline. It's actually not considered discipline. Abdul, you know a lot about discipline because how long have you been working out now?
Well over a decade.
That's ridiculous because I would never do that.
It's amazing though, because when you talk about discipline, people really fail to understand that discipline is very much like a muscle too.
Absolutely.
Just like you got to work everything out, you also got to work that out.
Correct.
And I think a lot of the things we're going to talk about today is all going to be related to actually just building on.
And that's the beauty of it, is the fact that when you go to the gym, you know what you're doing. You have the plan, you have the strategy, you know exactly what's going to happen.
Most definitely.
And when it comes down to discipline, realistically, we just don't have a plan.
That's true.
Right? So today we're going to show you 3 ways that you're going to be able to plan, strategize, and get going on your goals.
Step number 1, prioritization. Man, it's crazy. You hear that word thrown around so often, but not a lot of us actually understand what it actually means to prioritize your day.
So it's interesting you say that because I've read a book called Essentialism, and it's literally about prioritizing. And it's a great book, but it really goes into detail on how we need to start saying no. And I think that's our biggest issue.
Absolutely. Because as individuals, we always have this need, zeal, and desire to always say yes. We always want to please people.
Yep.
But we all fail to understand that we only got 24 hours in a day. And you have to be very selfish as to how you channel energy through that 24 hours you've got.
Yep. And actually, ironic that Abdul and I are doing this because Abdul actually had this issue about, 3-4 months ago?
Oh, most definitely.
And I just sat him down and I said, look, you need to prioritize. You need to take some time to yourself. And I think that's where you've reflected on that, and it's come out really well.
I think that's probably been my biggest changer, in the last couple months, because within that time and applying some of the principles that we've talked about, I've just noticed myself, just not only am I more productive, I find I just have less weight on my shoulder.
Right.
Because now I'm supposed to thinking about the 1,001 people, exaggeration, but all the many people I have in my life.
Although he is that popular.
Well, thank you. But, all the many people I have that I feel like I got to say yes to, by the time I cut that down to a manageable number and prioritizing that, it's just amazing how much I've been able to accomplish.
So that's really affected you then, just prioritizing and saying no.
Most definitely.
So realistically, at the end of the day, we only have so many hours in a day. And if we really learn to plan our days better, we really can achieve our goals that we want to achieve.
Yeah.
Which leads us to step number 2, plan. Oh, this is your favorite part.
This is definitely one of my favorite parts. And and going back to our analogy when it comes to just being adept to fitness and planning ahead, planning goes a long way. One thing about planning I find helps me out is the ability to be able to visualize what my day is going to look like.
Absolutely.
Because when you have a meticulous step by step, it's a lot easier to figure out what goes next. And with that, if there is a step that can be accomplished, it's a lot easier to revert back and adjust your plan when you have an entire framework to work with.
Absolutely.
So planning is I think is integral to success in every realm of life.
And it's funny because I actually see planning in a little bit different way than you. I see planning not so much as a visual tool, but also as a commitment level, right? When it's on my calendar, that's it. It's in my calendar.
Oh, definitely.
And what's in my calendar gets done no matter what. And I think however you want to see it, planning really does at the end of the day help you make sure you achieve your goals, because you're going to set those times aside for yourself to really achieve those goals you want to, especially when you're actually motivated at that time.
Of course. And I think one thing I would like to piggyback off your comment on is, when we think planning, we got to be very selfish.
Absolutely.
As individuals, we fail to understand that this is our time, and what we feed into it. I very, very identical to what you had said initially about the essentialism. I have a Pareto principle I also live my life by, which means the 80% of what your output is on any given day of the week, is usually stems from 20% of the input.
That's fair.
And with that, you have to be super selfish with what goes into that 20%.
And I gotta say, Abdul doesn't look like this overnight. This is a lot of planning.
Here's a hard work, baby.
So now that we've talked about prioritization and planning, right? How do you prioritize to plan for it? Because at the end of the day, the planning is linked hand in hand, right?
That's a big question. How do you prioritize the plan? I like that.
So let me tell you how I do it. So what I do is I always look at a day in 24 hours.
Okay.
Right? So 8 hours, I want to get my sleep. That's number one priority for me. That's how I prioritize that. So that leaves me with 16 hours a day. Right? Thankfully, I don't have to commute. I'm at home all day, so I save myself an hour right there.
Which is big because
That's
a lot of our viewers
massive.
today probably don't have that privilege. So I think that's
Absolutely.
That's big.
So I got, let's say I'm gonna book myself for another 8 hours for work, right? So how I look at it is I look at time as a valuable thing. Warren Buffett famously says how he can buy anything in the whole world. The one thing he can't buy is time.
And we all get the same of it. Yeah.
So that's how I look at it. I look at time and it's structured every single day, 24 hours. 8 hours of sleep is number one priority.
Right.
And everything else I just deduct it as if I was taking tokens away.
So are you saying with your 8 hours of sleep, everything else revolves around that?
Well, I mean, let's be honest. You don't want grumpy Sep around. You know what I mean?
So you don't want grumpy anyone around you. And you know what? It's funny that a lot of us just ignore the grumpy part, but that stems a lot from how much rest you get, right? So which is key as well.
So how do you do it? How do you prioritize? How have you learned to say no to people and really set that tone for yourself?
You know what? The honest truth is, I'm still in that process.
Okay.
You know what? You happen to be a little bit more advanced. I know when it comes to that methodology and process of being able to say no. I find I'm still coming of ways to go about it.
Okay.
But from a planning standpoint, what I typically like to do is I have a macro plan. So mine is usually done quarterly. I usually have like a quarterly review.
Yeah.
And I work backwards.
Okay.
Exactly.
All
And
right.
with that, it just helps me manage. So if I know what I got to accomplish in 3 months, I break that down to how does my 16 hours a day, if I do get 16 hours to work with, relate to that goal.
And you really prioritize your workouts too, right? That's your number one priority. Because I've seen you at the gym at like 2 a.m. and I'm like, Abdul, go to sleep.
You know what? That's part of my. I like to call it one of my anchors to life. You know what?
Yeah.
I feel like every day when I get out of bed, my main goal is I gotta do something physical.
Interesting.
Something
Mine is, and my anchor is sleep.
Oh, well, sleep is very, very important because without good sleep, you can't do that. But
I'm a creative mind, right? For me, sleep is massive because when I get lack of sleep, I'm really not creative. I don't feel creative at all. I'm kind of just doing tasks versus actually being involved with my stuff. So yeah, different anchors, right? Different priorities.
Most definitely. But yeah, it's, that's about the way.
So realistically, pick your top priority, something that's really important to you, and use that as your anchor to revolve around your plan.
Right.
So
because if you don't stand for something, you fall for anything, right?
Hey, I like that. That's a good saying. That's a good saying.
Absolutely.
So this leads us to number 3, which is reflect. So we always need to reflect. You just mentioned how you do quarterly reflections.
Yes.
I do weekly. I do every Sunday. Every Sunday I sit down and I literally see how I performed in the last week. And then I plan my entire week going forward.
I feel like I'll panic, but I think that's great that you actually do that. I feel like I'll panic, but reflection is great. And now, when you think reflection, what do you think of? What comes to mind?
So for me, reflection is how am I achieving to my goals, right? So what steps have I taken towards my goals, and what can I have done differently to do better next time?
Right.
So for me, reflection is an opportunity to basically see a better me, right? Versus reflection is more of a here's what I did and here's what I didn't do and then here's what I'm going to do next week. It's more of a productive approach to how do I make myself 1% better every single day. Right. That's my motto in life, 1% better every single day.
You know what? I really like that paradigm. I think that alludes very much to how I think about it. You know what? I see reflection in a very similar, but in somewhat of a different way as well.
Okay, how do you see it?
I like to celebrate the small wins.
Oh, nice.
Yes.
That's a great one.
And I think that's something that a lot of our viewers ought to always keep in mind. Celebrating your small wins goes a long way because that always acts as a catalyst to propel you to the next stage. If you don't celebrate what you've done today, it's very hard to appreciate and understand how hard you had to work to get to the
I
next
agree
step.
with you
right?
100%.
So,
That, you know what? That's one of my faults. I don't actually celebrate my wins.
you have
You know what
to.
I do? I take the little wins and I use them as my propeller to the next one. I don't actually sit and celebrate
You have to assimilate yourself in the win and just enjoy it.
You know, it's actually funny you say that because I actually set myself a goal for the month.
Right.
Which was to hit the gym 5 times a week.
Okay.
And guess what my small win would have gotten me?
What?
A reward of an Xbox. That's right. I convinced.
Can I go for you?
Right? So really do celebrate those small wins with some sort of reward, right?
Yes. You know, just
I actually did it, by the way. I'm proud of myself for that.
That's
Right?
good.
I told you, sleep prioritized.
And you know what? For all of you who are watching, I think that goes a long way to also understanding how to reward and create a reward system for your wins.
Yeah.
Don't be selfish about it. Understanding that you're giving back to yourself. Why do people work so hard anyways if you can't pay yourself? But you gotta earn it.
And we'll definitely do a video on how to set goals and how to do that. So I think that would be one of those awesome videos. So let's recap. So what do we got?
Number 1, prioritization.
Absolutely. And step number 2 is to plan and schedule your days.
Most
You want to make
definitely.
sure that you actually visualize, as Abdul says, visualize, and basically use your 24 hours effectively.
Most definitely.
And step number
number 3, reflect. Reflect on your small wins. Reflect on what you've accomplished. And don't forget to reward. I feel like we've given so much information.
There was a
today,
lot in that subject, absolutely.
But I think these guys would appreciate and know how to video know our 3
Is that right? Would
ways
you guys like to
show
see
up
that?
the next day. Yeah, would you guys like to see that?
All right. Smash that like button, show us some love, and we'll see how we can do a show, like show them actually how to do each individual one.
Step by step on our 3 top ways to show up the next day.
I love it. I love it. Comment down below. We'd love to hear from you. And please subscribe to the collective to join the collective community
And we'll see y'all
next time. Thanks for watching. But you wake up the next day and you completely do the other thing that you didn't want to do.
I think
Because
we
that
all
made
have.
a lot of sense,
Yeah,
right?
we all have. Yeah,
I think so. If she didn't laugh, that would have been a great blooper.
Sorry.
5 times a day. 5 times a week. Really?
You're fired. When now you're fired.
5 times a day. Go ahead, Seth.
Oh, was that what you said? 5 times a day?
Yeah. Accidentally, I was fixing it.
The exit.
Who invited her?
She is part of the CEO and CFO team, part of the leading board.